Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. For my next build, I'm building this Eduard's Sabre Scale 1 to 48. So in the box, we have the canopy, and the clear parts, and the navigational lights. The sprues are here, so we've got the two main ones. It's quite shiny plastic, so that's going to have to get washed before I prime it. The weapon system, more of the weapon system, the engines and exhaust ports, and of course the wings. Now the Sabre's always a simple kit, but they're really good to put together. Get the instructions in a moment. We have resin parts here. That looks like to be the seat for the cockpit, and well, I think it's all cockpit parts. Yep. We have the photo etch, and it's a coloured photo etch, as well as the normal plain photo etch. So that'll be good for the cockpit. We have a painted mask and the decal sheet. The instructions are nicely laid out, which you would expect from Eduard. There's 5 different variants that you can do on this, so you have lots of options. So I'll go through this. Ooh, that's a nice one as well. I'll go through it and decide which one to do. I'm beginning with the cockpit, and I'm painting that in River Aquacolor 43 medium grey, and this will be the dominant colour for the cockpit. The other main colour is 08 matte black, and that will be for the panels and the highlights of the cockpit. Now, if you're using the photo etch part, you're going to have to sand down some of the detailed moulding for the photo etch parts to work, because you need them to lay down flat. So sand them off before attaching your parts. There's a couple of little boxes to make up on the cockpit, so I'm just using my bending tool here to make them up. If you don't have one then, a bending tool, a pair of tweezers or a straight edge to bend the part will do. And once they're bent, just painting them, prepping them before they go in. Now the photo etch parts, so some of them are quite small pieces. You're going to have to be careful you don't drop these and ping them everywhere, because it'd be a shame to lose the detail. And preparing the instrument panels for sanding off the moulded details before putting on the photo etch parts. This photo etch part for the instrument panel is in 2 parts. So you'll have one coloured part, which is a black with the dials, and there's a top part that goes onto that, which gives it depth. I suggest building it actually on the sprue, so that you've got a nice clean surface to put your super glue on before you attach. It all needs small bits of super glue, so it's not going to go oozing out anyway, but it is easier to handle. So once it's glued together and dried, you can place it onto the part that you sanded down. It should just fit straight on top, and then it can be fitted onto the main cockpit. I'm prepping the engines now, and I'm painting these in River Aquacolor 90 silver. Now you don't really have to paint these all over, just at the ends really, but it depends how you feel on it. I just prefer to do it sometimes. And then time to put it together, the 2 halves and the actual fan. I found it easier to put the fan in on 1/2 first before marrying up the second half. The second half just fits in easier that way, and it won't slip as you're trying to get it into position. Now the cockpit actually fits on the actual engine. This is the bottom part for the landing bay gear, and this is the top part, the actual cockpit. If you're having the gear down, now's the time to paint that bay. If you're not, just leave it blank like I'm doing. The side walls of the cockpit do have a couple of photo etch parts that go in. You can't really see these, so it's up to you if you want to put them in. Fitting the cockpit itself is fairly simple. The landing gear bay makes a good anchor point to get everything to fit in. So the location points are quite easy to follow. Now it's time to put it together. Can anyone see the obvious mistake I've just made? So there I am, bonding it together quite happily, quite impressed how it's going together. However, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see an engine left out. I forgot to put the engine exhaust port in. A bit of a mistake really, but you have to laugh. Luckily I was able to get it in even though I'd closed it up. There was enough room at the bottom there to slide it in and put it in. It was a little bit tricky, but I got there. Didn't do it on camera unfortunately, but there you are. Onto the wings, and if you're putting the weapon system on, you'll have to drill some location holes here. They are clearly marked on the wing for you to place them. The two halves of the wings just lay on top. You shouldn't have any problem whatsoever here. I used a couple of clamps, but it doesn't really need them. The tail wings just slot in right at the back. The location points for these are well defined, and needs a little bit of persuasion to go in, but the tighter the better for wings. And then it was time to place the bottom part on. Now this just clicked in without any sanding down. It was actually quite a joy to place in. There was no gaps on the wing roots or nothing. It was a perfect fit. Engine cone was next. You can paint this beforehand if you wish, but since I was doing all the one colour, I didn't see the need to. You'll have to make sure this goes on the proper way. There's no location points to help you placing this on. So before it sets, make sure you've got it how you want it. For the sidewinder missiles, I painted them in 05 level aqua colour white, and I'm just putting the fins on while it's on the sprue, just for ease of use. If you've used to me building, you know I do this a lot now. And now I fit the covers for the landing gear. Now they don't have dedicated fittings for these. They assume that you're having the gear down. Because I'm having the gear up, you have to fit the covers, and you have to cut parts off the sprue for them to fit. You know, so there'll be a lot of lips and edges where they would generally just fit on the open position. You'll have to take them off, especially on the front part of this section here. It's in like a V formation because it's in open position, but you want that to lay flat. So I took the two of the part, cut it in half, and fitting them now. It was a little bit tricky to fit. There was one thicker, wider part than the other, so you have to make sure you get them in the right position. But there was a small gap at the end as well though. The main landing gear colours didn't need much modification. They fitted in quite nicely. I decided to put the stand inside where the landing gear bay was. The reason for that is an already made hole, and on the covering all I had to do was take a little piece out the side for the stand to fit. So it made sense doing it now than waiting until it was built, then drilling and sanding down. So I'm just checking for fit as I go along. It is a simple process, but it's better to take little parts off at a time and not one big chunk and think, oh well, I'm going to have to put a filler in after all. And once the part's in, you can see where the hole is going to be. Just point out just along there, and the stand will fit in there. And once that was done, I was able to put in the remainder of the coverings, which went in without any problem. Back to the weapon system and just assembling the two halves here on the sprue again. Parts are dry for the front landing gear base, so it's time to fill in the little gap. So I'm using my own filler here. This is melted down sprue, so it's melted down by the cement, and I'm just taking a paint stirrer here and a little bit on the tape, the paint stirrer, and just gently working it into the hole and smoothing it down flat. So I'm painting the rest of the weapon system in Revel Aqua Colour 90s Silver, and this is all over on this. Back to the front landing gear, and now I'm just sanding down the filler that I put in. It doesn't take long at all. It's just light plastic and cement, so it takes next to no time to sand down and rub smooth. There's a couple of aerofoils that go on the wing, so I'm just placing them in now so I don't forget. I tend to forget about these all the time. Now I can put down the first coat So this is Revell Aquacolor 99 aluminium. So I'm starting on the undercarriage side first. Just one main coat, then moving on to the wings and main fuselage. Just a light coat here. This is only the first coat going on. There's a bit of work need doing to the cockpit seat, so starting off painting 88 ochre brown for the cushions of the seat. Now I have my mask on, and the reason for that is I'm cutting some resin parts here. The seat sits on this big plinth which needs to come off, so I'm using my straight saw to take it off. It's vitally important that you use a mask while cutting this. The particles go everywhere and they can be quite dangerous to your lungs, so make sure you have a mask at hand while you're doing this. Now it's time to put the chair together, all the little various parts going on without any problem. There's a few photo etch parts as well to make up. There's little recesses for the seat belts to go in. These are photo etched, and they're a bit small, so it's difficult to put on camera, so I didn't really show them, but they just fit through a little hole, and you can secure them with a little bit of super glue. Once the seat belts are on, you can put in the headrest. Make sure you put it on the headrest first before you put the back on. That's the little piece waiting on the mat there. The back just fits over the headrest and the back of the chair quite snugly, but this is why you have to put the headrest on first. I'm using Tamiya's X27 Clear Red, and these are for the location lights, and then it's a X25 Clear Green for the other side. Next is the back section of the cockpit. Now this is made up of photo etch parts, quite small detail work to put in. Some of the parts were too small for my big finger, so I didn't put them on. I just put on what I could. Once they were on, I painted them in 43 medium grey by Revell Aquacolor. Now the instructions say start building this part next, and this actually fits inside the canopy. However, in the end I didn't use it. I could not get it to fit. It's meant to go inside the canopy and you secure it there on location points, and then it fits on top of the photo etch part that I'd already built, and it just would not fit. I'm not sure what the instructions meant, whether it was one or the other to go on. To me, that's why I think it should have went, but the instructions sort of indicate put the photo etch on first, then this part inside the canopy. I just couldn't get it to fit, so I left it off. Front part of the canopy is painted in 08 matte black. That's just ahead of the instrument panel. For the paint's dry, I use a little bit of super glue to attach the seat, and now the seat just drops in without any fuss whatsoever. When you put it in, just press it down a little bit to make sure it's secure. Next up is masking the canopy, so I'm using the mask that comes with the kit. So it's just a fairly simple process to place on. Just take the masking part off, and with a pair of tweezers just gently onto the canopy. Then you can manipulate it into position with a cocktail stick, your finger if you wish, to get it into position. To attach the canopy, I'm using Formula 560 canopy glue by Zap to fix it. Well, this is a glue that dries clear and it's odorless, so it's perfect for canopies. And it's just a matter of fitting the canopy on, which went on really well. You may need to fill a little bit in between the front section and rear part if you misaligned it a little bit, but you can use your canopy glue to do that. That's what it's there for. I'm using 08 matte black to paint the tips of the sidewinder, and for the pylon it's Revell Aquacolor 99. And once everything's settled in, it's time to put on the decals. So I'm fast forwarding it because there is quite a lot of decals to put on here. So while the first set of decals are drying, I'm moving on to the weapons again. Now these have a blue stripe going around them, so I'm using Revell Aquacolor 56 blue, and all I've done is masked off an area that I want to paint. So just to use some Tamiya 5mm masking tape for curves and just wrap it around to the area that I need to paint. Now back to the plane. Now the decals are dried, I can take off the mask on the canopy. and easy process. Just start it off, then take off with the tweezers, and then once it's off, just check it for any blemishes or paint markings. I did manage to scratch it a little bit. I don't know how I managed that, but I did, but it's nothing too noticeable. And it was back to more decaling. I'm placing these decals on the normal way, so I'm using warm water to release the decal, then Umbral decal fix on the part where the decal is going to go before placing the decal on, and wiping down any excess with a soft tissue, and just going through the process. Now back to the weapon system. Now the paint's dry, just taking off the masking tape, and it's time to fit the pylons onto those holes that I made on the wings earlier on. So they just fit into the little slots. Now it's one of the reasons why I left it till last to do this, because the decals are on and dry. It's better to do it this way really, instead of trying to cut a decal around the pylon. And once the pylon's dry, just placing on the weapons. There's not many to put on here, so it doesn't take much time to get them on. On the wing, I almost forgot to put the probe on, so I'm doing that now. There's just a little recess pointing at the edge of the wing. You may have to open it up a little bit to get the probe fitted. Next, for the side window missiles. Now I've placed them on the pylon before putting them in, because it's easier this way when the missile is quite thin, and it's difficult to get it to balance and dry while the pylon's on. So you may as well put it on before you put the pylon on. Then it's easier to place on. A little bit of withering to do. So this time is wither masking set D, and I'm using the burnt red and burnt blue for the engine. So I'm just putting the burnt red on first, then on top of that I'll place the burnt blue. And then I'm moving on to a wither master set B, and I'm using the suit component on this one to put in the streak marks along the wings and so forth. And how I do this, I just take my brush sharpener, press down firmly, then flick it up, and this gives a deep to light colour as it goes away from the wing. All that's left to do now is varnish, so I'm using Pledge Clear Polish to varnish it. So I'm putting a liberal coat all over. One little thing I should point out, I put the stand on back to front, so I put it the wrong way around. It doesn't really matter, but in case you're wondering why it's that way, it's purely by mistake. So this brings the build to an end, just putting the last of the varnish on now. I would recommend this kit for anyone. It's a quick build, it doesn't take long to build at all. I think I took around about 5-6 hours for the entire kit. So it doesn't take long. In actual fact, the decals was the longest part of the build on this kit. That took an hour or two to do. If you haven't done so already, why don't you check out my other builds on my channel. There's quite a lot up now. I'm building quite a lot at the moment, so there's always something new. So why don't you subscribe and see what's up next. You can also leave a comment if you like, and throw me a like as well. But for now, thank you all for watching. Bye bye.